Hello everyone, I hope all of you are doing good and I am here with a video series on class 10 maths real numbers. Yes, so this is the time when we are going to start our class 10 maths with a bang. And the first lesson that we are going to learn is real numbers. As always, we'll focus on the concepts and we will also focus equally on the questions because the more questions we solve, the better our concept is. So before we actually move ahead with the lesson, we need to do a very quick recap. Recap of what? Recap of the numbers, the types of numbers. So numbers are broadly categorized into two types, real numbers and imaginary numbers. You must be thinking, imaginary numbers? What are they? I haven't heard of them before. Are they imaginary? Do they not exist in real? Well, you can identify imaginary numbers by seeing how they look. So basically, they have a real number component like a 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6. But along with that, they have an I, which is also called iota or the imaginary unit. So they are imaginary numbers like 2i, 4i, 5i and so on. Imaginary numbers are also called complex numbers and yes, they are a little more complex than the real numbers and that is why we are not going to study about them right now. So we will learn about complex numbers in higher classes. For now, we will be within the limits of real numbers. So let's focus on real numbers. So real numbers can be classified into two categories, rational numbers and irrational numbers. What are rational numbers? Numbers in the form of p by q, where q is not equal to 0 and they are integers. So they are rational numbers like 1 by 2, 2 by 3, 2, 5, all rational numbers. Then what are irrational numbers? Exactly the opposite of rational numbers. They cannot be represented in the form of p by q. So examples of irrational numbers would be root over 2, root over 5, root over 6. So they are all irrational numbers. Now, let's focus on rational numbers. So inside rational numbers, we have integers. What are integers? So integers include all the positive numbers, all the negative numbers and 0. That is plus 1, plus 2, plus 3, plus 4. Again minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, minus 4, so on and 0. So all of these together are integers and integers do not include the decimals. So integers are basically those numbers which are seen on a number line. You remember the number line? Good. Next comes the whole numbers. Whole numbers are those which starts from 0 till infinity. The next is natural numbers which starts from 1 and goes till infinity. So you see, I am gradually coming down as in I can say that the natural numbers are a subset of the whole numbers are a subset of the integers are a subset of the rational numbers are a subset of the real numbers. It's nice, right? Okay, so that's about the numbers. Now, I still want to go one step ahead. Now, even within the whole numbers, we have two categories, that is prime numbers and composite numbers. So what are prime numbers? Those numbers which have only two factors, 1 and itself. That means those numbers are not divisible by any other number except itself and 1. For example, 2. 2 is divisible. You can only write 2 as 2 into 1 or 1 into 2. It is not divisible by any other number. Similarly, 5. You can write 5 either as 1 into 5 or 5 into 1, but no other number is a factor of 5. On the other hand, if you look at 6, you can write 6 as 1 into 6, 6 into 1, but you can also write it as 2 into 3 or 3 into 2. Right? So that means 6 has 4 factors, 1, 2, 3 and 6. So numbers like 6 are called composite numbers. So composite numbers means they have many factors. Prime numbers means they have just two factors, 1 and itself. Cool? So I think now we are thorough with all the types of numbers. Fundamental theorem of arithmetic, as the name says, it is a very, very fundamental concept of mathematics. So it tells us that every composite number can be written as a product of the power of the primes. Let's look at some examples. You think of any composite number, a number which is not prime. For example, 10. How can you write 10? 2 into 5, which is a product of power of prime, because power here is 1, but 2 and 5 both are prime numbers, right? If you talk about 25, 25 is 5 into 5, that is 5 to the power 2. So 5 again is a prime number. Think of 91. So it is 13 into 7. So both 13 and 7 are prime numbers again. Talk about 455. That is 13 into 7 into 5. So basically when you do the prime factorization, no matter how big the number is, but if it is a composite number, you will be able to write that as product of powers of primes. Let's look at a few questions. Question number 1. Consider the numbers 4 to the power n, where n is a natural number. Check whether there is any value for which 4 to the power n ends with digit 0. Now please remember this logically, that if any number is ending with 0, that number will be divisible by 5. So that's like a matter of fact, right? That's our divisibility rules in fact. Any number that is ending by 0 has to be divisible by 5. So 5 has to be a factor of that number. Now this number will end with a 0 if this number is divisible by 5. That means this 5 is one of the factors of this number. Only then this will be possible, right? But if you look at 4 to the power n, this can be written as 2 to the power 2 to the power n, that is equal to 2 to the power 2n. What does that mean? That means 2 into 2 into 2. How many times? 2n times. So do you see a 5 anywhere? A 5 is not there at all. So that means 5 is none of the factors of 4 to the power n. Therefore, it is not possible. So therefore, there is no such value of n for which 4 to the power n ends with the digit 0. Because its only prime factor is 2. Find the LCM and HCF of 96 and 404 by the prime factorization method. Okay, so this is 96 and this is 404. So first, let's deal with 96. 2 4s are 8, 2 8 is 16, 2 2s are 4, 2 4s are 8, 2 12s are 24, 2 6s are 12, 2 3s are 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this can be written as 2 to the power 5 into 3 to the power 1. Now let's deal with 404. So 2 2s are 4, 0 2 2s are 4, 2 1s are 2, 0 2 1s are 2. So this becomes equal to 2 to the power 2 into 101. So this is how we can write them as product of powers of primes. Now highest common factor, which is the highest common factor? So common factor is 2, but not just 2, right? Here we have 2 to the power 5, here we have 2 to the power 2. So which is common in both? So 2 to the power 2 is common in both. Therefore highest common factor will be 2 to the power 2, that is 4. What about LCM? Least common multiple. Now we know that the product of HCF and LCM is equal to the product of the two numbers. So using this relation, we can calculate LCM, which will be equal to 96 into 404 divided by 4, which is equal to 9696. Question number 3. Given that HCF of 306 and 657 is 9, find LCM of 306 and 657. So you see, it is again based on the same logic. You have two numbers, HCF is given and you have to find out LCM. So just now I told you that HCF into LCM is equal to product of the two numbers. So product of the two numbers is 306 into 657 and HCF is 9. So divided by 9. So this is 22338 and that's the L. Question number 4. Explain why 7 into 11 into 13 plus 13 and 7 into 6 into 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1 plus 5 are composite numbers. So I'll do one and I'll leave the other one for you. Is that fine? Okay. So let's look at the first one. So if you look at the first one, 13. So this is one term and this is the other term. So in both of these terms, 13 is common. So you take 13 common. So you are left with 7 into 11 plus 1. That is 13. 13 into 77 plus 1, that is 78. Now let's do factorization of 78. 2 3s are 6, 2 9s are 18. So this becomes equal to 13 into 2 into 3 into 13. So basically 2 into 3 into 13 to the power 2. So if you look at it, 2, 3 and 13, they are all prime numbers. So we see that this entire number can be represented as product of powers of primes, which means that this is a composite number. Now in a similar way, you can work on the other one. Here also you can take 5 common and then rest inside the bracket, and exactly in the same way as we did here, you can do the second one. So that's going to be your homework. Question number 5. Check whether 6 to the power n can end with a digit 0 for any natural number n. So again, as I told, for any number to end with 0, it has to be a multiple of 5. That means 5 has to be one of the factors. Correct? But if you look at the number pattern 6 to the power n, that actually means 2 into 3 to the power n. Correct? That means 2 into 3, 2 into 3, 2 into 3, so on n times. So do you see a 5 anywhere? No. So 5 is not a prime factor. So 5 is not a prime factor of 6 to the power n. Therefore it cannot end with 0. Question number 6. There is a circular path around a sports field. Sonia takes 18 minutes to drive one round of the field, while Ravi takes 12 minutes for the same. Suppose they both start at the same point and at the same time and go in the same direction. After how many minutes will they meet again at the starting point? So let's say this is the field. So that's Rahul and that's Sonia. Okay. So now it says, now let us assume that Rahul takes n rounds and he takes how much time? 12 minutes. So that means he has covered n rounds with 12 minutes for each round. So this is the total time that he would have covered. Let us say Sonia had covered m rounds and she took 18 minutes for each round. That means she spent total 18 into m minutes. Right? That is the total time spent by Sonia. Now if you look at this, the total time taken by Rahul is a multiple of 12, has to be a multiple of 12. Similarly, the total time taken by Sonia has to be a multiple of 18 because they are taking 12 minutes and 18 minutes respectively for one round. Now, the question says that they meet at a common point and that too at the same time, which means that the time when they meet is a common time. So we are talking about a common multiple of both of them, right? So therefore what we need to do is we need to find out the least common multiple of 12 and 18. So that is what we have to do. Correct? So I hope you understood why are we calculating LCM in this case. Because no matter how many rounds Ravi takes, but that total time that he is spending will be a multiple of 12. The total time Sonia is spending has to be a multiple of 18. But both of them meet at the same time. That means it has to be a common multiple for both of them. And that is why we are calculating LCM. So how do we calculate LCM? 18 can be written as 2 into 3 into 3. 12 can be written as 2 into 2 into 3. So this is 2 into 3 to the power 2 and this is 2 to the power 2 into 3. Therefore, least common multiple will be equal to 2 to the power 2 into 3 to the power 2. That is equal to 36. So we understood what is the fundamental theorem of arithmetic. So now is the time to understand why do we learn about this theorem, as in where do we apply this theorem. So basically in this video you will see that there are two areas where we use this theorem. One is to prove that a given number is an irrational number. So that's one where we use. The second area where we use it is if we are given a rational number and if we are asked to predict whether the decimal expansion of that rational number would be a terminating decimal or a non-terminating decimal. How do we identify that? So, the fundamental theorem of arithmetic helps us there. So, these are the two applications of fundamental theorem of arithmetic which we will understand now. So, let's first look at the concept of the irrational numbers. We all know what's irrational number. The numbers which cannot be written in the form of p by q. Examples are root over 2, root over 3, root over 5 or pi. These are all irrational numbers. Now you must be thinking that how is this theorem going to help us to prove that a particular number is irrational? Well, not directly this theorem, but there is another important theorem which is based on this theorem that will help us to prove that a given number, for example root 2 or root 5 or root 3, is irrational. And this important theorem states that if we are given a prime number p, and if p divides a square, then p also divides a, where a is any positive integer. So using this concept, so this concept along with the fundamental theorem of arithmetic will help us to prove that a given number is irrational. So let us take a look, how do we prove this? So how do we prove that root 2 is an irrational number? We will prove it by what we call as the proof by contradiction. So basically what we will do is we will assume that root 2 is rational, and that's how we will start, and then we will arrive at a result which is false, and therefore by contradiction we will prove that root 2 is irrational. Okay, so how do we start? Let's assume that root 2 is rational. Okay, so if I assume root 2 is rational, then root 2 will be equal to a by b. It will be in the a by b form where b is not equal to 0. And we also say that a and b are co-prime. That means they do not have any common factor except 1. Right? That means they are in their lowest form. Correct? For example, if it is, I'm just giving an example, 4 by 12. So 4 by 12 can be further reduced to 1 by 3. But when you look at 1 by 3, so they are both co-prime. They do not have any other factors common except 1. So in a similar way, we say that okay, root 2 is written as a by b, where a and b are co-prime. So from this relation, we can say that root 2b is equal to a, or we can say that 2b square, by squaring on both sides, 2b square is equal to a square. Now from this, we can say that 2 divides a square. And from the theorem which we read just now, we learned that if p divides a square, then p also divides a. That means 2 also divides a. So that is our first conclusion. Now, let us move a little ahead. Okay, so what we understood is that a is divisible by 2. Now, if we are also able to prove that, 2 divides b also, that means they have some other factors also which is common between them except 1. Correct? So that is what we will be trying to do now. So from here we see that do b square is equal to a square. Let us write a as 2k. So if we write a as 2k, in that case we can say that 2b square will be equal to 2k whole square, that is 4k square. Now looking at this, we can say that b square is equal to 2k square. That means 2 divides b square. Again, since 2 divides b square, 2 also divides b, and that is our second conclusion. Now what do we see? From 1 we see that 2 divides a, from 2 we see that 2 divides b. That means 2 is again another common factor between a and b. So what went wrong? That actually means that whatever we have assumed that root 2 is rational, that assumption itself is incorrect. So that shows, and that is how we prove that root 2 is irrational number. Correct? So with this calculation, we prove that AB has common factor 2. And that contradicts our assumption. Therefore, root 2 is irrational. Let us try one more question. 3 plus 2 root 5 is equal to irrational, and we have to prove that. Now you may get many such questions where you get kind of combination of rational and irrational number, and you have to prove that it is irrational. So here also let us assume that 3 plus 2 root 5 is rational. So we assume this. So since we have assumed this, so 3 plus 2 root 5 can be written as A by B, where A and B are co-prime. So from this we can say 2 root 5 is equal to A by B minus 3, or root 5 is equal to A 1 upon 2 A by B minus 3. But so as per this assumption, this should be rational. This is rational. Therefore, the left hand side should also be rational. But we know that root over 5 is irrational. That means there is a contradiction. And what is the contradiction? The contradiction is that whatever we have assumed is incorrect. And this shows that 3 plus 2 root 5 is irrational. So that was pretty cool, right? Now let us see how does this theorem, the fundamental theorem of arithmetic, helps us in exploring whether the decimal expansion of a particular rational number will be terminating or non-terminating. We all know that any rational number in the form of p by q can be expressed as a decimal. Now whether that decimal would be a terminating decimal or a non-terminating decimal, it could be challenging to tell that without doing the actual division, right? But with this theorem, this challenge or this problem is going to be solved forever. Want to know how? Let's take a look. Just two simple things that you need to remember. Let us suppose you are given a rational number in the form of p by q. So looking at that rational number, you have to tell whether its decimal expansion will be a terminating one or a non-terminating one. Now, if q is of the form 2 to the power n 5 to the power m, that means this is going to be a terminating decimal. But if q is not of the form of 2 to the power n 5 to the power m, that means this is going to be a non-terminating decimal. Simple. This is the only thing you need to do. So whenever you are given a rational number, just focus on the denominator q. Factorize it and see if you can write it in the form of 2 to the power n, 5 to the power m. Let us try a few examples. So here we have a couple of rational numbers, and let's see. Let's say I randomly pick up one. I pick up this number 17 by 8. So if you focus on the denominator, so let's say I talk about 17 by 8. So if you focus on the denominator, it can be written as 2 to the power 3, 2 into 2 into 2. Since it can be written as 2 to the power n, 5 to the power m form, therefore this is terminating. This will end up in a terminating decimal. Let's look at another example. Say 29 by 343. So in this case, if you focus on the denominator, which is 343, this can be written as 7 to the power 3. So it is not in the form of 2 to the power n, 5 to the power m. Therefore, this is non-terminating. Let's take few more examples. For example, if you take this one, 13 by 3125. So 3125 can be written as 5 to the power 5. How am I writing this? So for that, you will have to factorize it like this, 3125. So 5, 6 are 30, 5 2s are 10, 5 5s are 25. So then again 5 1s are 5, 5 2s are 10, 5 5s are 25, 5 into 25, 5 into 5. So 5 to the power 5. So since it is written in the form of 2 to the power n, 5 to the power m, therefore this is terminating. So it's very simple, very, very simple, right? So only if you remember this rule, just apply this and you can easily tell just by looking at the rational number whether its decimal expansion would be a terminating decimal or a non-terminating decimal. In fact, I would like you to try the rest of these. I do not want to solve all of them. In that case, it will be more like, you do not get hands-on. So please try the rest of the examples. In case you have doubts, please feel free to reach out to us on the Ask Questions section. I hope you found this video useful. In fact, I hope you found this entire lesson on class 10th maths real numbers useful. If you have any feedback, let us know in the comment section. Do share the video with your friends so that everybody else can also get benefited. And I will see you all very soon with a new lesson, with a new video. Till then, bye-bye.